This is Referee's World with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.
Hello again and welcome to the Referee's World podcast, which offers education and training for football referees of all levels. You can listen to our weekly podcast every Friday from 5 p.m. by subscribing on the website or by searching Spotify and Apple Podcasts for Referee's World Podcast. My name's Darren Cullum. I'm a Level 5 referee affiliated with Somerset FA. And this is my mentor, my hero, and you've got a whole list of other distinguished titles, Rich, and I can't remember them today because I haven't got them written down. Richard Mellin.
No, and I'm sat here at home and I haven't got them written down either.
Brilliant.
So, hi, Darren.
So here we are, and we're recording it remotely, and you couldn't get much more in the way of social distancing for this particular episode because you're at home in Bridgewater and I'm here in the studio in Taunton on Skype, and our guest is hanging on the line somewhere else in the world, but we'll introduce him in just a moment. First of all, Rich, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. I'm hanging in there like everybody else, very frustrated about being able to do very little. No football in the greatest sense, but we just got to see this thing out and look forward to what comes in the next few months, hopefully.
Just to give you a bit of a time frame, the date today of recording is the 12th of January 2021. We're currently in lockdown. Rich is currently on furlough and the rest of the world is going mad, basically.
Yeah, that's about it though.
This is Referee's World with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.
So we have 20 minutes on the clock ready to go, and we've got a couple of special ones for you. Rich, I'll hand over to you here.
Okay.
Let's do a formal introduction to our exclusive guest on the podcast on this episode. Rich, he's your mate.
Okay, yeah, he's my mate. He's everybody's mate, really, but he's my mate especially. When we first met, and I introduced to you on the Referee's World podcast, Lee Probert.
Evening, Rich. How are we? Hi, Darren. I've just finished doing my nails.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent. Pleased about that.
I'm available to talk to you now.
So I'm pleased to see, first of all, that you've listened to a previous podcast, because that was the comment that was made a couple of episodes ago about the reason why you couldn't join us, because you were doing your nails.
Yeah, and I'm a bit worried, Darren, that you've not actually sort of thought about having a penalty retaken just during lockdown.
That wasn't me, mate. That wasn't me.
But I think he knows who it is.
Yeah.
Larger than life. He's listening.
Let's crack on. Lee, welcome to the podcast. Thanks very much. I know you've been listening and following for the last 10 years or so while you were developing your career as a referee. Before I hand you over to Rich to take the lead on this one, first of all, for those that have just found the podcast, just tell us a bit about you, your background, what you're up to now and that kind of thing before we really open up the cans of worms.
Well, I think the good job I've come on, Darren, really is to make sure that there's no more stories about cappuccinos and McDonald's. So what am I doing now? Not a lot at the moment. A bit like the rest of the world. I sadly had to retire from the Premier League 18 months ago due to a severe injury that I sustained during a game in the Premier League. And we set up Par 4 Sports, offering professional teams from EFL, Premier League and around Europe to travel to UAE, Spain and Portugal for winter breaks and pre-season training camps. It's one of those where you finish and you don't want to finish, and you set up something that you enjoy doing. We enjoy working with the clubs. We had 15 teams going away last summer to all of our venues. We got 19 fantastic venues throughout Europe, and they can be found on our website at par4sports.com. I'll quickly drop that one in. So, I'm just really waiting for the world to start turning. I can't go back to Spain because of my house is empty at the moment. So if anyone's in Spain and wants to go and have a look at it, then just make sure it's safe for me. But, we're just a bit like everybody, frustrated and just wanting to get back out there and start doing things we enjoy doing.
Okay, Lee. So let's start at the very beginning. And first of all, how you got into refereeing in the first place.
Blimey, Darren, you're taking me back years.
Well, we're going to milk it, mate. Milk it while you're here.
Well, we've only got 20 minutes, apparently, so unless you're trying to get a few more out of me, I'll just have to make sure my nail appointments are done. Where did I start? I started on the Isle of Wight. So, I'm an Isle of Wight boy originally, although Wikipedia's not got it fully right. I was born in Ellsbury. I moved to the Isle of Wight when I was very young, so I class myself as an Isle of Wight boy. Football was my passion. I always wanted to be a professional footballer. My dad was always involved in football, managing and coaching and everything. And he wanted to be a ref when he was growing up as a young boy. But in those days, you had to be a policeman or a teacher or anything. So sadly, my dad being a milkman didn't fit the criteria of being a ref. So I think deep down, I think he always wanted me to have a go at refereeing. And let me tell you, I've had some good rows with my dad, bless him. God rest his soul, he's not here with us at the moment. But let me tell you, it was with gritted teeth that I ended up taking the referee's exam on the Isle of Wight, because that's the last thing I wanted to do.
What changed your mind then?
Probably my dad badgering me every single day about taking up a refereeing course, and you're never going to make a footballer, so why don't you do the next best thing and go out refereeing? And then he got me running the line. I think everyone that started refereeing has run the line somewhere at a club or done a favour for somebody. So I did the line for my dad a couple of times. I just don't like him doing that. I want to be in the middle. I want to be playing football. But he just badgered me every single day. Have a think about it. And we got some good family friends. Philip Don's a very good friend of the family. He was on the Football League at the time. I think he might have been in the Premier League as well, but I don't think the Premier League was going when Philip was reffing. And he sort of said, "Oh, give it a go. You never know. You never know what's going to happen." So, yeah, after badgering every single day, coming home from school and saying, "Have a go at it," we decided to get in touch with the referees. I think it was the county training officer, whoever it might have been, and said, "Can I have a go at referee's exam?" Yeah, of course you can. And that's really how I started.
And then from then you headed over to Bridgewater and you met Rich.
Yeah, there's a few stories in there.
There's a pause there, wasn't there?
Yeah, save the stories for another day. You met Rich and you got involved in Bridgewater, and then sort of from there your career sort of just picked up.
Yeah, I mean, people say to you, living on the Isle of Wight was always going to hold you back, and I never thought that, because I never saw the stretch of water as a problem, because I'd get up and I'd get my kit ready, I'd get the ferry an hour before the hour I should be, and I would be picked up the other side by assistant referees or club secretaries or whatever and taken to games. But it's surprising when I did come across to the mainland, where it became a lot more easier to travel, to move around. And then, like I say, got onto the Southern League and just moved through the system rather quickly, really.
Do you think, Lee, that living in the southwest or up in the furthest northeast, northwest is a disadvantage for referees?
No, I don't know. There's a myth, isn't there? Everyone says, "Oh, I live miles away from the nearest club," or I just think that's a myth. I think because at the end of the day, if you put the time, the dedication, the commitment in, and your performances are there, I mean, you look at James Lillington now. James is still living on the Isle of Wight, and he's now SG2. For
those listeners who heard the comment about SG2, Select Group 2, that is. Select Group 1 is the Premier League referees. Select Group 2 is the Championship referees.
Is that a telling off? Is that you?
No.
You coaching
No, ladies, calm down. So, Lee, back to you going up the ladder. Tell me about your first game, your first big game, or what you consider to be your first big game, which would have been perhaps your first league game.
Right. Well, I'll tell you my biggest learning curve game was when I got onto the Southern League. It's the old Beezer Holmes League at the time. I was about 18, 19. I wasn't very old. And I remember getting the opportunity to referee Waterlooville, that had just been relegated from the Premier Division, against Forest Green Rovers, who had just been promoted from the Midland Division. So the Midland Division fed into the Southern League. I don't know how it works, but the biggest baptism of fire was welcome to the real world. And those that will know about the real world is ex-professional footballers that have dropped down a level, that make it quite difficult for a young referee just learning his trade. There's a goalkeeping coach that I still keep in contact with, who nearly got his head taken off by a challenge, ended up red carding the centre half for the challenge. And it was, oh my goodness, if this is what it's going to be like every week, am I going to be okay?
I think many of us have been in that boat, particularly on a basic, normal Sunday league game.
Yeah, but least on a Sunday league game, you get yourself home and then you can go home. But then I've got to travel back from Waterlooville via a club secretary whose player I just sent off, and then get on the ferry. So it was one of those where people look back and say, what games did you learn from? And I learned from those sort of games, and I had to learn early. And you need to learn early. You need to be streetwise. You need to know a little bit about you, and you need to know what's going on around you.
There's nothing like having a baptism of fire, is there? And like you say, that is your learning ground. And that's in most things in life, but particularly in refereeing, Rich.
It is. I like to say, I'm trying to identify when I first met Lee, and he just got onto the Southern League, and a couple of the games around this area, because coming across to the southwest, he would go down and see Tiverton quite a lot. He'd go up and see Chippenham and all those teams, and they were sort of sparring to earn their right to be where they were, because they were sort of freshmen into the Southern League, and Lee was obviously the same. And trying to establish yourself when you're in those early days is not easy going, and you have to have that. You have to have self-belief and confidence. And the first time I met Lee, that was in abundance. Although underneath, we might sort of have a conversation about, like got the butterflies today, really nervous, don't feel comfortable, and it's just how you deal with those things.
I can imagine that many club secretaries went into a state of panic when they saw Lee on the list to referee a game, particularly with his travel expenses every week. Coming over from the Isle of Wight.
But the good thing was we were capped at that time, so it was a ferry. They realised they had to pay a ferry fare, but then of course we had joint travel at that time, so I was always reliant on someone to pick me up from somewhere. So, but I'm sure that James Linnington, that's living on the Isle of Wight now, I'm sure he gets all his expenses paid. So, yeah, nice to have those again.
Okay, so let's talk about a typical day on the Premier League for you, how you would start first thing in the morning, what your processes would be, your thought processes, any sort of habits that you may have, any superstitions. We were talking about the superstitions in a recent podcast episode.
I know Rich has already dropped me in about not wanting to carry the ball and stuff, but that went soon right out the window, because I just realised that's just nothing. That wasn't even a superstition. That was just being daft, I think. Yeah. A normal Premier League day was, depending on where the game was, I tend to like to either travel on a day if I could, and if I couldn't, I'd go the night before, and I'd always try and arrange to be at the hotel around about 10 o'clock. Because I like to spend time at home, have my tea at home, and then, of course, let the traffic die down. And then on a Friday night or whatever night it was, the game was, I would then travel when it's a bit more quieter. And then if it was a match day nearby, i.e. London, where I could get to Southampton, Bournemouth, whatever, then I would travel on the morning. But we have to be at the hotel. Well, we had to be at the hotel 4 hours before. That was protocol, just to make sure that we were all in a meeting room where the whole team were together. So we'd meet first thing 4 hours before of a match day. Some did pre-match instructions at the hotel. Some of the guys. I always like to do mine at the ground, just because you have a feel for when you're at the ground. You've got some visualizations, and the lads can have a look at it. So we would then travel around about 12 o'clock. We'd leave the hotel for a 3 o'clock, get to the ground. Then we would do as the last few bits, the goal line technology. We would do that, and then we'd do our earpiece check just to make sure everyone was happy. And then my dressing room was a bit different to everybody else's, I think, because I used to love the 80s, and I still love the 80s music. And those that were in my dressing room would realise we'd bang hits of the 80s on, and it would be rather juvenile, and it would be like a disco environment if anyone described it. I think.
Go on, then give us an example of some of the songs that you like from the 80s.
Oh, Darren, you've only just got to just go on and just shuffle 80s playlist, and we had them all. I mean, Dex's Midnight Run, there's just loads of daft ones, and I don't know what it was, but once we started playing it once, and we were just like, all of us were getting on really, because I had the same team. I had Andy Garrett and Simon Beck with me for the last few years, and it just became like a nightclub.
Bit of Spandau Ballet.
Oh, a bit of gold. We had a bit of Spandau. There was just silly things that we did, and it just made everyone either relax or just everybody just think that we were daft.
Well, I suppose when you're a team that regularly works together, you get to know each other quite well, and then you arrive at a club, and then the teams there will think, oh my God, it's that lot again, expect your 80s disco next door and all that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, to be honest, Darren, I can probably tell you a few managers that have come in, when they brought the team sheets, were more than happy to stay in our dressing room than going back into theirs when they had all the music, the players now. And I remember one where he just said, I can't believe it, Lee. He said, it's just like going back all my years of going out to a nightclub and just walking into your dressing room has brought back so many memories. So, yeah, it's about, you've mentioned already during your podcast about breaking the ice. And I think if there are times when you can break the ice, and we'd had it on, and then I'd always turn it off during team sheets. I never left the music on, but I always left the question was, you're more than willing to stay to listen to my music if you want to, but I'm sure you've got other better things to be doing. Just as they left with a smile on their face. Again,
breaking the ice, Rich, and this is something, as Lee's mentioned, that we talked about quite recently, wasn't it? And the importance of being able to break the ice and get yourself on level pegging, I suppose, with a club. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not easy breaking the ice, and how you do it is important, rather than be arrogant, be somebody that carries a roll of carpet under each shoulder. Lee knows exactly what I mean with that, because there was a lot of accusation, lot of perception about how referees went about their job. It's not easy trying to create your own profile, but you've got to learn how to be yourself. You've got to learn how to communicate. You've got to engage with people. You've got to be willing to listen, and all those things that come out of refereeing are beneficial to what we try to do as a person individually or collectively as a team. And like I say, I'll go back slightly. When you have a pre-match situation and you have music playing, you've got to have three people willing to connect. There's no point in having a referee that wants to hit the radio hard and fast, and the two assistant referees are sat in the toilet, quivering. It's got to be a team thing, so consequently how you build your team is different. Each of us are different when we do it.
Lee, one of the things that Rich talks about a lot and always has done in the 10 years we've been doing the podcast is your profile. Protect your profile. Presumably, the higher up the ladder you go, then the more important these little things that you learn as part of your apprenticeship, if you like, really, really come into action.
Yeah, definitely, Darren. It's about your first impressions. Wherever we've spoken many a times, Rich and I, about you never get a better chance to make a first impression. Now, whatever level you are, you've got to make sure you go with the right attitude. You don't go swanning in, carrying those rolls of carpet that Rich talks about, because there is a very, very fine line between arrogance and confidence. And it does. Once the perception of someone thinks you're arrogant, it takes a long, long time to break that down. So it's all about treating people how you want to treat themselves, making sure that you cut the right profile, because like you say, the higher up you go, the more the eyes are looking at you, because all of a sudden you're moving through the system and people are looking about what you do off the field, not just on the field, it's about what you do off it as well. And like you say, at the top level, it's even more scrutiny.
And after 20 minutes, I think that's a really good place to end this particular episode. I now know that the next few episodes are going to be taken up with Lee Probert, because there is so much that we haven't covered yet, Rich.
Yeah, I agree. I want to ask about that first. I know about the day. I want to ask and share with the listeners the first Football League middle, when it was a belting hot day at Northampton. But
okay,
we'll come back to that.
We will come back to that.
116 degrees pitch side, that one.
That one. Yeah.
He's dangling the carrots already. It's the Referees World podcast. Don't forget, you can listen to us online at refereesworld.co.uk. And, of course, you can download the podcast. And we'll catch up with you and with Rich and with Lee in the next episode.
The download is complete.
This is Referees World with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.